The Grateful Dead stunned the music industry in 1970 by allowing fans to freely record their performances. Although the majority of bands, despite having no radio singles, this band, who had previously slept on floor mattresses, amassed a $95 million yearly business by 1994 on just 31 cents per album sold. The question is, how did the Dead generate $285 million by giving away their music for free? Empire, when all industry experts said that it would lead to their destruction if a major record label paid you only 31 cents for each CD you sold prior to becoming a legend, how would you respond? The Grateful Dead began as Mother McCree's Uptown Jug champions in 1965, with each member receiving only $125 per week. Hardly enough for groceries, let alone rent, and were signed by Warner Brothers Records in 1966. This marked the beginning of a frustrating fight against the system that kept artists dependent and underpaid while Warner executives dined at upscale restaurants, and the band members lived in a single home in San Francisco's hated Ashbury district. Jerry Garcia recalled that the band was living entirely on the kindness of Osley at the time, sleeping on floor mattresses and using their meager resources for food. Their circumstances deteriorated in 1969 when their manager, Lenny Hart, secretly extended their Warner contract without their consent. He then disappeared with the $75,000 advance, further entangling the band with a label that was already taking advantage of them. By 1970, despite their increasing popularity, the Dead found themselves heavily indebted to Warner Brothers, performing 6 nights a week and earning a total of $125 for the band. Bill Kamian recalled that it was roughly $20 per person per week, and Warner Brothers kept the majority of the money made by the band's inventiveness. Rather than giving up, the band planned an escape, touring relentlessly to grow their fan base directly and taking advantage of every legal loophole in their contract. In 1973, they shocked the industry by separating from Warner Brothers and starting their own independent label. Records of the Grateful Dead Phil Lesh clarified that since we already had our own sound system and handled reservations and travel internally, it would appear worthwhile to start our own record label. Their initial release on their own, The Dead had taken the first step toward rewriting the rules of the music industry after the flood, reaching number 18 on Billboard's chart without the help of traditional marketing. Just as they were celebrating their independence, they threw their newfound freedom into a technological gamble that almost brought them to ruin. The infamous Wall of Sound picture concert in 1974 featured 3 towering stories of speakers that stretched 100 feet across the stage, with 641 speakers powered by 48 channels creating crystal clear sound. Even in the largest venues. At the legendary Hollywood Bowl performance that year, fans in the farthest row could hear the faint squeak of Garcia's fingers on the guitar strings. Something that had never been done at arena concerts before. One audience member remarked that it was like being in front of a jet engine, but it was crystal clear and you could hear every note. Jerry performed even from the rear of the arena. The sound wall was not only larger than other concert systems, but it was also essentially unique, built to remove distortion and provide crystal clear music to every person in the space, regardless of where they were seated. This audio marvel had a lot of real-world issues. This system needed 5 semi-trucks to move. After 8 long hours of labor with a staff of 21 for setup and dismantle, the band hired 26 specialist crew members to run it, with monthly expenses skyrocketing to around $100,000. The Wall of Sound was referred to by Jerry Garcia as a financial sinkhole because of the financial strain that pushed them into a harsh tour schedule in order to pay for behind-the-scenes costs. Their business operation was on the verge of collapse due to distribution issues plaguing their record label and counterfeits creating fake Dead albums. When Ron Raya, the head of Grateful Dead Records, vanished in July 1976 with $225,000 in distribution. It was the last straw. 3 years after fleeing Warner Brothers, the Dead signed with Arista Records, bringing them back under major label control. Their brief taste of independence had ended in near bankruptcy, teaching them a crucial creative lesson. With advance money from United Artists already drowning in debt from the Wall of Sound, they now faced the loss of crucial operating capital as well as the collapse of their independent label by September 1976. With their financial wounds still fresh, the Dead faced another obstacle: fans secretly recording their concerts. Most bands would have reacted, but the Dead made a choice that would permanently change their business. At a 1969 Hollywood Palladium show, the band initially acted hostilely toward the taper. They seized recording equipment, and their first sound engineer, Ole Bear Stanley, was especially against it, saying that by 1974, he didn't accept tapes. Wa Ramrod threatened to cut your cords if the taper didn't turn over the equipment. This strategy was altered in 1976 when the group during a pivotal meeting, Jerry Garcia had a flash of insight and became the change agent. Their position changed from opposition to tolerance, and something amazing occurred. A thriving community grew up around sharing concert cassettes. I don't feel taken advantage of, and I don't object if people record our music and listen to it at home, but I don't want them to sell it. The unexpected outcome was a sharp increase in tape trading and concert attendance. Instead of studio albums capturing a single, polished version, these live recordings highlight the Dead's improvisational style, meaning that no two performances are the same, giving fans an excuse to attend multiple shows. Community became free marketing, introducing new listeners to the band's music and strengthening the bond between band and audience. In 1984, they established a written policy that stated that the tapes were improving concerts rather than replacing them. Since recording was now formally accepted, the first big band to embrace what the industry viewed as stealing established a dedicated tapers section behind the soundboard. Mickey Hart attended a band gathering on July 11, 1984, where this decision was made. Bob Weir, Phil L. Hunter, Robert Ramrod and Jerry Garcia. Mickey Hart clarified that we said, let them come in, let them tape, after deciding we didn't want to be police officers. The average attendance increased from 8,500 to over 13,000 per show between 1974 and 1977. And by that time they were performing for enormous audiences. Their September performance at Raceway Park in New Jersey drew 19 people. That same fan, First Spirit, drove their next industry-defying move in 1983, while other bands gave in to corporate ticketing. The Dead then developed their own system, directly opposing Ticketmaster's expanding. At the time, Ticketmaster was using a brutal lockdown tactic to control access to tickets, dictate terms to artists, and aggressively secure exclusive partnerships with large venues. Most bands just accepted this as an inevitable fact. The Dead solution was really simple. Appreciative Dead ticket sales GDTS bypassing traditional channels and using only envelopes, order forms, and personal checks sent to a small office in San Rafael, California. This mail order system allowed fans to send requests for tickets directly to the band. The system began modestly, selling only 24,000 tickets in its first year, but by 1984, they had sold over 115,000, and by 1994, they were selling over 600,000 tickets annually directly to their most devoted fans. At the initiative of manager Danny Rickin, this innovation got underway in February 1983. At first, it was handled by Eddie Washington and Stephen Marcus, and information on ticket sales was only supplied. With no public listings or promotion, the Grateful Dead operated solely on word of mouth, establishing an insider community of deadheads with priority access to gigs via official hotlines on both the East and West Coasts. This expansion eventually ran afoul of Ticketmaster, the ticketing behemoth, who demanded 90% of the tickets for Dead shows. The Dead, a power play that had collaborated with innumerable other artists, refused to back down and instead obtained what became known as the Dead Exception, an unprecedented arrangement that allowed them to keep 50% of the tickets for the majority of shows. By the mid-1990s, their direct ticketing strategy had produced something even more valuable, a direct line of communication with their audience. Keep in mind that this was before the Internet era, and other bands relied on radio stations to promote tours. The Dead had established their own ecosystem outside of the traditional music industry, and by 1994, their strategy had generated approximately $52.5 million in ticket sales and an additional $35 million in merchandise revenue. From 1990 to 1995 alone, they earned over $228 million in concert revenue. The Grateful Dead's legacy endures not only in their music but also in how they revolutionized the rock and roll industry long after Jerry Garcia passed away in 1995. Their fan-first strategy helped them earn $285 million from concert tours, making them the second highest-grossing touring act of the decade behind only the Rolling Stones. By 1994, the band had almost no radio hits, but their unconventional approach had turned into a business making $95 million annually, proving that their business model was not just idealistic but remarkably profitable. Their 2015 Fare the Well reunion shows alone brought in an incredible $55 million, demonstrating the enduring power of their business model decades later. What makes their story so compelling is how their ideas spread to a new generation. Following the Dead's fan-first strategy, Pearl Jam battled Ticketmaster in the 1990s. Today, artists like Chance the Rapper base their careers on direct connections with listeners rather than pursuing label deals, validating what the Dead did decades ago. The band, who had previously been concerned with making ends meet, developed a business model that outlasted them, demonstrating that their greatest innovation wasn't their sound but rather that they could succeed by putting fans first. In the end, the Dead's greatest accomplishment was turning the music industry upside down and winning.